Hey everybody, welcome to this week's video. So this week I have two awesome guest speakers with me. I have Hasan and Katelyn. They're two fourth-year medical students at the University of Florida. They just recently matched into urology, so congratulations guys. Hasan matched at Duke, and then Katelyn matched at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. So this video is just to kind of get their insight about the whole interview process and match day, and kind of just get a feel of what they went through and see if they have any advice for those that are going to be going through this process soon. So, Katelyn, if you don't mind, we can start with you. Tell me a little bit about your interview experience and maybe specifically in regards to Zoom interviews.
Sure. So Hasan and I both applied 2021 to 2022 cycle. So it was all virtual. Don't know if that'll change in the future. And I mean, by and large, I think the Zoom interviews were a good method to save money. I still felt like I could be myself and have certain personal attributes come across virtually. I do think that it was harder to compare programs at the end of the day. And I don't know if Hasan feels the same, but I do think they all sort of blurred together. So for future applicants, I would take notes as you're going through the process.
Sure. And Hasan, what about you?
No, I think I would agree with all that Katelyn said. I think when I was thinking about scheduling these interviews, I thought it would be, easy to do them virtually. It wouldn't be as taxing as what I would imagine in-person ones. So I was surprised to see that I was really tired after a full interview day or after a couple in a week. So I thought that was something that I didn't expect. But I did think that it saves a lot of time because, before the interview and after, you can get back to either prepping for the next one or kind of just relaxing and doing what you would normally do instead of traveling and spending time in a hotel. So I think that my interview experience with that was good. It was a good kind of quality of life and still focused on the activities I like to do, like exercising and just relaxing in the time.
Yeah, so I think that what we're hearing from a lot of people is there's pros and cons to both, obviously. We've only been doing the Zoom interviews now for a couple of years. When I interviewed, it was the in-person interviews. So it's a lot different. It's a more hectic schedule. But, I was able to meet these people in person, meet the residents in person and faculty, see the actual hospital and the program and everything. Do you think that not being able to be in person took away from your ability to really, get a feel of the vibe of the program and whether or not you would fit in, or if it was somewhere that you would get along with the residents? If you don't mind, Hasan, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest concern coming into it, just not being able to get that vibe. But I think that with the resident, the open houses the night before, or even the breakout rooms, you can kind of pick up on things. I certainly felt like that was something I was trying to do like conscientiously throughout the process. So I gave more attention to trying to be more observant of how the residents are interacting, maybe not asking questions, but just like seeing how they interact. So I think I could somewhat get a vibe from that way. I don't know how Katelyn feels about it.
I completely agree. It was so interesting to see the spectrum of those pre-interview social hours, because some were very, very organized and the residents would put you into different rooms. Some of them you could tell all the residents were at their own home and were like cozy on a couch. And then some of them, all the residents were in like somebody's apartment having a lot of fun together. There was one interview I had, they were all like at a bonfire together. So I could safely assume that those people probably like each other. But I agree with Hasan, you are able to somewhat get a glimpse into how the residents are as a group and whether or not they're cohesive, but it's probably not as accurate as if you're actually there. I will say that where I matched at Pittsburgh, they had a chat with a resident, I guess, or like sort of meeting you could do beforehand. And then even after the interview, you could still do that. And so you would go on their website and schedule a meeting like via Zoom to chat with like a resident one-on-one. And I found that that was really helpful because I chatted with a PQI5 there pretty consistently, like maybe twice throughout the process. And it really allowed me to evaluate whether or not I fit in there.
Well, I think that's good to hear that you guys were able to at least somewhat get a feel of the program, which I think was one of the big concerns for a lot of people with the whole Zoom interview. But it seems that you guys managed it pretty well, and you were able to definitely get something out of these open houses and different things that they organized.
Mm-hmm.
So now you finished your interviews. You're trying to decide on a rank list. It's super stressful. There's a lot of different things to consider. So, Katelyn, what were some of the things that you considered when making your rank list to help you prioritize different programs? Because obviously a lot of them are really similar, and you need to figure out some small ways to tease out your rank list.
I think that's a great question. And there are so many factors that go into making a rank list. And I'm sure it's personal depending on who you are as an individual. So for me, I wanted to go to a program that had a great surgical training. And I mean, a lot of the programs do, but by that, I mean, maybe examples of how the residents had good autonomy, and then also having a VA or a large community hospital for them to get good autonomy is pretty important. For me also, I definitely considered the length of the residency. So Hasan and I both matched at a 6-year program. I think that you have to, if you do end up ranking a 6-year program pretty high, you have to be comfortable having that extra year to do additional research, or in my case, it's 6 months of research and 6 more months of surgery. So you have to be okay with that, especially if you're planning on doing a fellowship after. Most programs are 5 years though, like UF is.
Hasan, how about you?
Sure. I think that, at first you're looking at programs and you're trying to distinguish them by location and call schedule and those kinds of things. And I think that was somewhat important to me at the beginning. But when I really sat down to make my rank list, I only used the main thing that I used was just how I felt like I fit in on the interview, and kind of going back to that resident and attending and general faculty vibe. And I think that that's mainly how I came down to making my rank list. And then of course you add the potential research opportunities, maybe the ranking, if that means something to you, and then location. And then you'll see how, when you value one aspect of a program or things about a program, how it relates to each other in the grand scheme when you kind of assign weight to different things. I think the highest weight was just general vibe and how I would fit in, because I think me being happy is the most important thing.
Yeah, so I mean, I think those are all great points. I approached it a very similar way. I think that what I've realized is everyone's really unique, and they all have different things that are more important to them, different goals of residency, obviously finishing residency and becoming a physician and all that. But depending on what's most important to you, you might have different priorities. So I'm glad you guys mentioned a bunch of different things and then what was most important to you. Okay, so now you guys have made your rank list, and match day is coming up. So it's a very nerve-wracking time. It was for me, and I'm sure it was for you and for everyone that's going to come after you. So Hasan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your match day experience and the time leading up to it?
Yeah, sure. So I actually drove. So I'm on a rotation up in Gainesville, but I had nicely gotten the day excused by my team. So I actually drove down to Orlando to be with my parents. My girlfriend, who lives in South Florida, she drove up to spend the night before, because I was pretty nervous. My dad randomly bought an Oculus VR, like a virtual reality headset. So I spent a lot of time the morning of just being outside of our reality and in that. But ultimately, my dad had scheduled surgeries. He's a physician as well. And I went outside his hospital. We drove to his hospital. We opened it in the parking lot, because that was kind of like going full circle, where I was initially exposed to urology and medicine in general. And I was like, I'm going to open it over there with everyone. It was a good day.
Awesome. How about you, Katelyn?
So similarly, I also was fortunate to have the day off. So I highly recommend to any students that have a rotation planned, ask your clerkship director or team if you can have the day off. Like, you don't want to open that with a group of strangers. So I also was at home. I spent the night at home with my family who, my parents, they live in Gainesville. And the next morning, I feel like I had woken up fairly early, like 6 a.m. And I just like tried to focus on other things and like got dressed, ate good breakfast, had coffee. And honestly, my mom made a comment like 30 minutes before 9 a.m. when the results came out. And she was like, I just don't understand how you're as cool as a cucumber right now. Like, I feel like my parents had worse nerves than I did. And then about the last 10 minutes when I was opening up my computer and trying to log on to the portal, I was a little nervous. But similarly, I also opened it with my family. And then I saw some friends later that morning, later in the day. I saw Hasan that night with our other classmates that matched. So it was just a really happy day full of celebration.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations again. It's a huge moment. The difference for me was I was on the West Coast at the time, and we found out at like 6 a.m. So for me, it was like I'm just going to wake up when I'm going to wake up, and I'll check when I wake up. But that didn't happen. It was more of I couldn't sleep until 6 a.m. and then I checked. But that's that 3-hour difference, I guess. So thank you guys so much for all of this insight. I just, before we kind of wrap things up, if you guys could each just give a little bit of advice for future applicants, whether it be urology or any applicants, about maybe what you would have done differently or things to consider, or just something to leave the viewers with. Katelyn, you want to go first?
Sure. So I think apply broadly. When I was looking at my rank list at the end of the day, it was a wide range of programs, all with different strengths, some smaller, some larger, some probably more reputable than others. But I felt like I would have genuinely been happy ending up at any of them. And at the end of the day, just rank based on how you truly feel about a program. You'll see people giving all kinds of advice, like rank where you're most likely to match and all that stuff. But really, if you rank how you truly feel, I think you'll be happy with where you end up. And lastly, I think the virtual format, should it stay, just try your best to show your true self. And I think people value authenticity, as well as maybe do some interview practice, because even doing this, I'm like listening to myself saying and like, and I think any type of practice before you are on the real thing helps.
Thank you. How about you, Hasan?
Yeah, I think, everything that Katelyn said is perfect. I would definitely do that. And I would also highly suggest doing really good research into the programs that you do get offered interviews at. I think, when you spend time looking things up yourself on their website or talking to residents or other people that you can reach out to, it makes a difference in how you interview and if you actually would fit in a program or not. So I think that was something that was huge. And the other thing is, really don't be afraid to reach out to mentors. I've have people that I ask for advice throughout aways, at home rotations, and it really makes a difference. And I don't know, at first I was like, why am I reaching out? It's kind of like I'm bothering them or something, but it really makes a difference, and it can help shape your mindset on how you look at programs and how you look at your rank list and all of the above. So, and ultimately believe in yourself.
Those are all awesome points. On that note, I'll just piggyback off that a little bit. Is I was kind of in a position where there were people that were potentially considering UF, and they found my Twitter account or my email address or whatever, and they reached out to me. And you're not bothering us when you do that. We want to tell you about our program. We want to get to know you. And I think that's great advice. Feel free to reach out to the residents at the programs, because it's great for you and it's also good for them, because then they get to know you a little bit as well. Well, I won't take too much more of your guys' time. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations again. You guys are both rock stars. You're going to do great. Excited to maybe see you in one of the conferences, one of the urology conferences in the future. And thanks again. I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. To all the viewers, I hope you enjoyed the content. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.